It's alive! Euro-Asian Bob's Fuego is alive! Yay! And now the work has only just begun. Let's get started. This is Euro-Asian Bob's 1982 Renault Fuego. It's Renault from France. If you guys haven't already seen the video, there's a link in the description to go see the original video we did on this. This is an update video to that video that we actually got it running and driving. It's been quite expensive so far. And I wanted to do a video today for you guys to show you how you've got that car that's been sitting for 20 years, it's Dad's car, you always wanted to get it back on the road again. And just getting the engine to start and run only opens the door to double and triple the amount of money expense. It's always kind of a thought in people's mind that if I get it to start and run, I'm golden, I can get back on the road. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. So many other things are wrong. Let's take a look around this one more time. You guys didn't get a good look around last time. Looks like a funny little smile that it has. It's actually just the hood is popped, so we can show you guys the engine here in a minute. Here's the front of this quirky little Fuego. Many of you guys have commented on the previous video, you remember actually owning one or knowing someone who owned one. They are very rare. They were very rare even when they were new here in America. They were sold, I think, at AMC dealers. They're definitely super rare now. This one's paint is fair. All of the plastic work as far as the lenses and things is all intact. It's not cracked. It has the original old style metric tires on it. And really it's in pretty good shape. Let's take a look at this quirky convertible top. Junior Mint's actually been working on this. He's been doing an excellent job. In order for him to sit in this car and move it or do any kind of road test or anything like that, we have to have the top open because he's like 6'6" or 6'7". He's really tall. So even sitting in this car, his head sticks out about this far. It's like the Flintstones or something. It's really weird. This is like an accordion top. You can see the little geared teeth that are in the tracks here. And it just slides closed and seals. And when you open it, it just crinkles and opens it back up. I don't know how it holds off wind noise and things on the highway, if it does a good job or not, but it actually still works amazingly. A lot of things still work on this. But I want to talk to you guys today how getting the engine running only opens your eyes to so many more other things that aren't working. I'll get this hood open here. You can see it says Fabrique in France, Renault made in France. But it does have the US emissions placard on there, making it legal for sale in the US. I'm not sure where Euro-Asian Bob bought this, but you can tell it had been sitting for quite a while. It had been running. There's a lot of dust in here. A lot of dirt. Been sitting for quite some time. As the emissions decal says, this is 95.44 cubic inches of four-cylinder turbo goodness. Look at the little turbo, guys. There's the wastegate actuator there. And like I mentioned on the previous video, it has a catalytic converter right behind the turbo there. Big suitcase shaped thing. Here's this weird corrugated tube here. That's the mass airflow sensor. Air comes in through here, goes through the turbo, comes out here, and it has this really cute little intercooler over here. It's the tiniest little intercooler. Just fits over here in the corner. It has even its own fan. And then goes into the engine there. So the turbo piping, intercooler piping, everything does a nice little tour all over the engine. Just like you can imagine in the 80s, there's lots of vacuum hoses and vacuum lines and this and that. They didn't have electronic actuators as much, or if they did, they were expensive and vacuum was pretty cheap. So we got it running, only to find out that it's got some weird surging idle. I'll go ahead and start it. You guys can have the big reveal and hear the Fuego running. I'll let you hear it for a minute, then I'll show you, by getting it running, what we found. So as you hear, it's alive again. And I didn't really have to worry about a timing belt so much. I believe this thing has a timing chain. You can see where their timing case is and everything. But in getting it running, once it fully warms up, the idle is erratic. It goes whoa, whoa, whoa. We did some smoke testing to figure out if there's a vacuum leak somewhere, only to find out somebody previous from the past, even before Euroasian bought it, did some kind of hackery or something going on with the vacuum lines. Let me show you. So there's this vacuum line here with some check valves that goes to who knows what. We really haven't seen anything that it goes to. There's also something that would have connected here. We also see that something's been cut back here to this little solenoid. We're not too sure what went there. We're going to have to dig deep. There's not a whole lot of information on these cars, but luckily we do have a shop manual. But it has tons of vacuum reservoirs. Here's another vacuum reservoir. All kinds of vacuum hoses all over the place. Let's go over to the parts table and kind of talk about what we've done so far just to get it running. The biggest issue we had was the fuel system to get it running again. And dealing with fuel systems, you definitely want to have a fire extinguisher present so you can give your fire a BJ. Why? Something, I don't know. Anyways, I've actually used this stuff and it puts out a fire immediately. Oil fire, grease fire, it doesn't matter. It instantly puts out the fire. It works really well. Anyways, when it arrived, the fuel tank, it had a coating on the inside from the factory, like a paint coating or something that had completely disintegrated and was like a sludge all inside the tank. I had to ship that off to Kansas City, and luckily I got it just in time because the company that rebuilds or redoes gas tanks up there is one of the last companies in the area. They said, after this fuel tank that you're doing for Euroasian Bob, we're hanging it up, we're retiring, we're closed. I was like, great, where do you send these now? So I'll have to find someone else. I'm not sure who else would do it. They did a good job. They got it boiled, they got it cleaned up and put a new lining and coating inside the tank. But everything else along the fuel system up to the engine was pretty much shot. Here's the actual fuel filter that came out of it. This is an old Napa 3161 and I couldn't even blow through it. Solid. There's probably actually solid fuel in there. As it degrades, it turns into a sludge and just blocks it all up. Here's the old fuel pump we removed out of it, and we would put power to it and it wouldn't even do anything. You could feel it kind of try to work, but what's the lifespan going to be even if you were to get that to free up? So I use these part numbers here. It's a Walbro GSL391. I was able to source a brand new fuel pump, got that installed, and it's working very well. But the other thing we had to worry about is the fuel level sender, and the old one was completely disintegrated. Take a look. The little metal is all turned into solid rust. You can see there's just tons of debris and rust. Just gross. The little contact here is ruined. It's just solid rust now. And this old low-level warning light was completely disintegrated when I removed the cap. Look at all that, guys. So what are the odds of finding a fuel level sender for a Fuego from 1982 in America, or really anywhere? I really didn't want to spend 6 or 8 or 10 hours on the phone calling people. Call this person, call that person, email this person. Hopefully they respond back. Maybe they won't. I didn't have time for that. So I went and bought a universal fuel level sender that had the correct ohm reading as the old one. I was able to look that up in the manual. And it looked like this. You can see is the picture on the box. I didn't utilize the whole thing. I actually cannibalized it.
Cannibalism is illegal.
It is, but not for mechanical parts. It's not.
Okay, that's good.
You can see in the picture there's the actual fuel level sender here, and it has 2 little bolt holes or screw holes here. I removed that from the actual sending unit here. It had its own float and everything. I was able to attach it to the old fuel level sender rail, I guess you would call it, on the gas tank. I got everything wired up. It had its own low level light and everything, and I got it installed. It actually works great. It shows half. We verified it with fuel, half, empty, full. Everything works just fine. So I was able to get it back going that way without spending hours trying to contact people that may never even respond. So all of that just to get it running. Let's go back in the engine bay. So Junior Mint removed all 4 injectors, and we're able to use BG fuel system cleaner and electrically operate the injectors under a little pressure, and they all came alive. They started working and spraying a nice fine mist pattern. They were really working great. And we replaced all of the fuel injection hose there. They have a strange fuel injection setup. Let me show you. So here's the fuel rail, but the injector is down here, and connecting the two is a rubber hose in between. It's actually flexible. These bolts, or nuts I should say, actually hold the injector in place, but this is the hose that goes in between. Once we verified those were clear and clean and not flowing any debris or anything, we flushed out the fuel lines, put everything back together, fresh fuel, actually fired right up. I was very, very pleased about that. But now that we've got it fired up, let me start it again and show you we've only run into more problems. So I'm going to turn on the key, and we see the fuel gauge came alive, and our little oil pressure gauge is showing really high even though the engine's not even running. And then the speedometer and the tachometer they seem to be stuck. We thought if we get the engine running we can actually see what's going on. I'll go ahead and start it. You see the oil pressure went all the way to the left, which is really strange. Maybe that's normal. You guys can let me know in the comments, but you can see the tachometer is doing nothing. It's physically stuck. We believe the speedometer is also physically stuck. There's 2 things really hampering going any further with that. We're right now just finishing up with a blizzard that hit Kansas. We had almost a ½ an inch of solid ice, and then it snowed 6 or 7 inches on top of that. And the temperatures at night have been literally 0. Not feel like 0, they have been 0. For like a few nights in a row now. We're slowly coming out of it, but we can't go drive it that way. End up risking going off the road or wrecking it. And this is OBD nothing. There's no diagnostic port. There's nothing on this. So everything's going to have to be manually testing with electrical and everything like that. There's no scan tool hookup for this thing. While I'm standing here, you guys can see the 69 Citroen DS in the background. That's mine. It's still for sale. The previous person who was going to purchase it, the deal didn't go through, so it's still for sale. Call Crazy D in the office. We want to make a deal. We'd like to get that thing moved on. So make sure, if you're interested in one of those, to give Crazy D a call. Information about the car is in the description below. So looking in photos and going to look at this, it presented very well. You thought, okay, I'll just get this thing running and I'm great. I can just get this thing on the road. It's ready to go, right? Wrong. I've been through this so many times in the past. I really don't do this anymore for any customers other than Hoovy or Eurasian Bob, maybe 1 or 2 others that I trust. I know that they understand the process of how this works. They don't have some fantasy in their mind of how it should work. They know how it really should pan out. And in the past, I've had Porsche 928s that have been sitting for a long time. I've had Jaguar XJSs or all kinds of different cars that people have been putting off, have been sitting for 10, 20 years. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, it was Dad's car, it's sentimental. I've got to get this thing going again. Cost isn't an issue. That's one of the biggest lies I've heard in a long time. Cost isn't an issue. Because just like with this car here, we have just got it started only to find out our work has just begun. Because Junior Mint moved it back and forth in the shop just a little bit and the brakes almost go to the floor. Our gauges aren't working. Does the AC work? How is it going to go down the road? Is it going to have vibrations? It needs new tires. How good are the brakes going to work? Is it going to steer, have weird feeling in the steering? There's so many things that have to be worked out that can't be worked out until you first get the engine running. How's the clutch going to feel? How's it going to run through the gears? Is it going to do well? Does all the lights work? Turn signals, hazards? Do all the power windows work? Because you know, when somebody's putting in $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 into their car, they expect all of it to work perfectly. But they rarely ever want to pay for all of it. It's usually about this time, and it's also on the last cars in the past I worked on, that we get it running, only to have the new estimate say, now we got it running. Here, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, this needs to be repaired. And I usually get these words: this has gone farther beyond everything I ever dreamed of as far as how much it's going to cost. I just didn't know it was going to be so exhaustive and so intensive. I didn't know so much would be wrong. I thought we would get it running and that would be it. Just stop, park it outside. I'll pay you for what you've done so far. I'll come and get it. I'm sad about that. I was hoping I'd get Dad's car back on the road, but I don't have that kind of money. So this is a video to show you guys, and I don't have this problem with Euro-Asian Bob. He understands this situation. But it's definitely a video to show you guys, you see that really cool car, or you have that old cool car that you want to get back on the road. It rarely ever is glamorous as you think it will be in your mind. One thing we did find out, the clutch does work. It seems to go through all the gears. We won't know until this ice storm stuff is gone. We can actually take it out and safely drive it. But the brake hoses will probably have to be all gone through. It may start to develop brake leaks. Once you start to use brakes actually driving, then you can actually have calipers start leaking. Start road testing and you find out it's got vibrations, it's got vague steering, or we're going to have to find all that out. But so far we know the clutch works. We know the brakes do kind of work. They're just real spongy. The AC we haven't tried yet. We really want to check a few things before we just turn on the compressor. We want to make sure the compressor spins free and all those things. We need to figure out the surging idle. It's obvious it's got some vacuum lines that have been tampered with. We need to trace that down and figure that out. It's probably why the idle's kind of high. It's trying to bring the idle down and it just can't do it because something's leaking so bad. But we're getting there. As far as we're going to go with this, and I can imagine with Euro-Asian Bob, is that we're going to get it safe, get everything operating properly, but we're not going to do a full-off restoration. Because in the end, Euro-Asian Bob has to sell this car. It has to be profitable for him. It has to be something worthwhile for the person that's purchasing it. Maybe they're not interested in spending $30,000 for one of these because it could cost that much if you went through the whole car. It really could. But luckily, the interior is very nice, the exterior is very nice. It doesn't need a lot of that. Euro-Asian Bob is a very good mechanic himself, and he has people working for him that are pretty good mechanics as well. A lot of the light work they will take on themselves, like brake pads or some light bulbs or maybe some small other jobs. They will take care of that at their place, at the dealership or at their shop. The main thing they want sorted here is the complex things, going through the whole fuel system, getting the engine running, ensuring everything has been done. And by the way, we did do fluid services before we started the engine. All those have been taken care of. But that's kind of an agreement, or I guess an environment that I can work with. I'm not expected to restore the thing front to back. Because like I mentioned a minute ago, when you start getting up to the $10,000 territory, you haven't restored the whole car. But the customer will feel in their mind they've spent so much money that it better damn well be fully restored for that much money, even though we only restored 20% of it. Euro-Asian Bob has an understanding when he gets it back, there's going to be some bugs he's going to have to work out, maybe a brake line or maybe this or that. They'll take care of that. But we have it running, we have it figured out. We'll get with him and see how much further he wants to go. We'll take care of some of the other issues, get it safe, and that's really all we're going to do here. All in all, it's a really cool car. I have never seen one in my life until Euro-Asian Bob bought it. I'm glad he did and brought it in. We could experience and check it out. It's a really cool little car. If you're curious what kind of tools were used to work on this Fuego, check our Amazon affiliates link in the description below. All the tools we use in the shop are for sale there. If you purchase anything, we get a small cut and really appreciate it. Don't forget about the Citroen DS is for sale. Contact Crazy D in the office. Want to work a deal with you, somebody out there that wants to buy it. It's a good little car. And also make sure to hit the subscribe button here because there's so many more cool videos to come. Thanks for watching.